What's up, Banter fam? Welcome back to the show. In today's show, we are going to be looking at 5 altcoins which I think could outperform in this market during the month of December. In today's show, we're going to be looking at the narratives that I think are particularly strong heading into the month of December. In November, despite the FTX situation obviously meaning losses for a lot of coins, we still did see some narratives continue to outperform as they decouple from the macro environment. And I expect the same thing to happen in December and in the coming months, because that is just how crypto is operating at the moment. Because although macro affects external flows, I don't necessarily think in all cases it affects peer-to-peer capital. And McKenna does share the same sentiment as me, saying alts with catalysts over the coming months will decouple from macro. And the goal of my show is to bring you guys the hot narratives, bring you guys the altcoins that can outperform, because although DCAing into a lot of the major alts over the past few months has resulted in net losses, I do think there has been great opportunities to still profit in this market. And going forward in the future, there will continue to be great opportunities. And in the show, I really want to get you guys thinking in that mindset of finding new narratives, finding altcoins that can outperform, being proactive and not looking in the past and focusing on things that have already run, but focusing on things that still are yet to run. And that is what I am here to do. Speaking of finding opportunities in this market, on my show on Tuesday, I did say at 16,400 that if Bitcoin breaks this level at the bottom of the range and retests, then I would be taking a long. Of course, we broke that level. We had a perfect retest, and now Bitcoin is up over 5%. So congrats to everyone that ended up taking that trade. These levels ended up being spot on, and we had some nice profits. If you're using 5x leverage, you would have made 25%, 10x leverage, 50%. So it was a decent little bounce. Some of the altcoins as well have also been showing a lot of strength. We were using Bitcoin as the momentum gauge, but obviously if you trade altcoins, you'll get much higher gains than Bitcoin. But the Bitcoin levels ended up being pretty spot on over the last couple of days. If you do want to do any trading, remember there's a link in the description to Apex, because I'm a big proponent these days of trading on a decentralized exchange, just because of some of the security benefits you get from it. So in the description, there's a link to Apex. If you want to trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge, Atom, XRP, you can do so on the Apex exchange. And they're also giving away $200,000 worth of weekly trading rewards, so you actually can trade to earn. So the more you trade, the more you earn. So that's a bonus of using Apex as well. But let's get into the rest of the video, and we're going to be looking at 5 altcoins which I think can outperform in December. Now, before we get into any of these coins, I want to make this very clear. I am not making calls in today's video. I am not saying you should buy these altcoins now because they're going to go to X dollars in December. What I am trying to do is I'm trying to get you guys in the mindset of finding new narratives. And I'm going to be suggesting some of the narratives that I think can outperform to get the wheels turning in your head and to start to frame the month of December for you guys. But it's up to you to look into these narratives further instead of aping in, and maybe take my suggestions as a starting point to do your own research. So I'm going to give you some narratives today that could perform, but it's up to you to take those narratives and really critically think about them and think if it aligns with your thesis as well. So I really want to get us into the mindset of finding these narratives. And I think what I can do in these videos is really help you guys get that initial thought process kicking, because oftentimes in crypto, coming up with new ideas is very difficult. But once you have an idea in crypto, and that's my job to give you the idea, then you can kind of run with that. And once you have an idea, it becomes a lot easier to build a thesis around that idea. So 5 theses in today's video. Maybe you only like 1 or 2, but it just gives you guys a nice starting point to start off with. And as Luba says in the comments, smash the likes. And there is one altcoin I will be buying live on the show. So not all of these are just ideas. One I'm actually going to be actioning. That I'll tell you guys what that is in a few minutes. So the first narrative, which is hot right now, which I think can continue to exhibit strength throughout the month of December, or at least in the ecosystem, is Fantom. Now, the reason Fantom exploded over the last few days is really off the back of 2 narratives. One, Andre being back, and we know that he's back for sure because he's now starting to speak at conferences. He's speaking at Quantum Miami, one of his first appearances in over almost over a year in a crypto conference. So Andre is back. Technically, he never left, but I think the main shift now is that he's actively developing again in crypto. He seems to be much more active with the Fantom Foundation. And obviously, now that he's posting Medium articles about Fantom, that suggests that his interest in Fantom has sparked over the last few months, and he's actively starting to contribute to coding again. So that's exciting for Fantom fans because, as I said in my Fantom show a couple days ago, Fantom didn't really have a spiritual leader. I think Andre is that guy, just as Ethereum has Vitalik, just as Cardano has Charles Hoskinson or Gavin Wood and Polkadot. Andre can be that guy for Fantom, and I think religion is and community is one of the most important things in crypto. I do think this guy does have an importance to Fantom, a significant importance to Fantom for that reason. The article he posted, though, was I think the main reason why Fantom actually ran from 18 cents to 24 cents because of these three facts. One, Fantom has over $340 million worth of assets in their treasury, which is kind of crazy because 200 million of these assets are cash and non-crypto equivalents. And when we compare that to the market cap of Fantom at $640 million, that means that almost half of their treasury is sitting in cash or non-crypto equivalents. If you actually add the crypto component, which is 100 million of their treasury, then almost over 50%, or definitely over 50% of the total Fantom circulating supply dollar value is sitting in their treasury, which is kind of crazy because that's a very, very strong position from a balance sheet perspective. And if this was a traditional stock, we'd pretty much be blown away by the valuation there. So that was great to hear. And also the other really good thing to hear was the 30 years of runway that Fantom now has based on their $7 million spending per year versus what they have in their balance sheet. So we can also see a real spike in interest in the weekly active addresses. We saw a spike in transactions as well, a spike in new users. So the on-chain data is quite good from Fantom's perspective. And I think something that's slipping under the radar a bit for Fantom is the Gitcoin grants fundraising program, which is finally launching. So we know one of the major criticisms of Fantom in the past was the lack of VC funding, but furthermore, the lack of initiatives. Like we saw that massive $500 million program for initiatives for Near Protocol. We've seen massive $100 million plus programs for Polkadot and Ethereum. Fantom never really had that, or at least it wasn't executing in the same way that other projects were. It did have that initial fundraise, but then that kind of stagnated and then they changed it up. But now they're relaunching it with Gitcoin grants. So we are going to get more clarity as to the protocol funding initiative tomorrow. So that's going to be quite interesting because obviously you need good developers on a chain. For a chain to succeed, it needs good developers to create dApps that incentivize users to use a chain. It all starts with development and then the knock-on effects flow on from there. So I'll be interested to hear what happens in this Twitter Spaces with this new updated fundraising program. If we look at a quick ecosystem update to see what is happening in terms of TVL, a lot of these DeFi apps are now starting to spike in TVL, and we have seen consistent gains across the ecosystem. If we can compare this to other chains, Fantom is actually up on the week versus other chains, which is, I think, quite a contrast to a few months ago when Fantom was starting to drop off in terms of its TVL. We could see that it's now up 7.56% in the last day, 8% for the last week. And this is actually beating almost every other chain in the top 10. Even its monthly is beating every other chain in the top 10. And what I said in my Fantom video a few days ago was there kind of becomes a point with your protocol TVL where you kind of hit a bottom, or you hit a point where there's no more forced sellers, there's no more voluntary sellers, and the amount of capital locked in the ecosystem starts to level off. And I think that's what happened with Fantom. There just wasn't enough voluntary sellers to keep the TVL dropping and dropping and dropping. It kind of hits a point where it needs to bottom, and I think that's what happened with the Fantom TVL. Of course, it can go lower if something major changes, but it's just been a good sign to see that the TVL actually level off over the past few weeks and start to consolidate. But when we do look at something like Fantom, it has run. Like, let's be completely honest, the token has already run from 18 to 24 cents. So is this likely the best altcoin for December? Well, there's a couple things that I want to address to answer that question. The first thing I want to answer is the ecosystem. I think although Fantom has run, there are ecosystem projects which I don't think have run in comparison to the Fantom price. Some are still lagging behind, one of which potentially Liquid Driver with its cross-chain exploration and master gauges coming. Byte Masons, a project, Justin Bebis, that I'm a big fan of from the development side. They're launching Reliquary. You've got Juice DAO launching their V3, and there's also other Fantom applications like Beethoven X, which launched cross-chain on Optimism. Thana now launching on BNB. So some interesting stuff happening. So maybe just look into the ecosystem a little bit. If you think Fantom can continue to gain momentum, look into the ecosystem, see if there's some opportunities there. But of course, you guys want my levels at the end of the day for a Fantom purchase. And this is all that matters right now. It's this major trend line. So yes, we have successfully broken out of this bottom formation, and we have made a higher high on the very low time frames, but I do think the daily time frame is slightly more relevant. And we still see that we are approaching this major downtrend, this major trend line, which currently sits at 28 cents. If Fantom broke this trend line, honestly, the sky's the limit. It could absolutely rocket straight to 40 cents. But it can also get rejected at this trend line. I do expect we're going to test. It's only logical that Fantom tests this long-term trend. If we test this trend, it can always break back down, and then that would be obviously a short opportunity potentially. There is a bit of leeway in the meantime, but it's only a few percent. So if you are trading on a longer time frame, you do ultimately want to wait for this break of trend here, and that could potentially be the signal for a next leg up. So just watch this daily time frame on Fantom. It's very, very, very important. And in the meantime, maybe look into the ecosystem, because it has run from 18 to 24 cents. Let's be realistic. We do need to wait for this area to clear. An interesting thing off the back of Fantom, though, and it's not directly related to Fantom, but it obviously was related during the beginning of this year when it first launched, and that's Solidly. Andre said it was his best piece of tech ever created. We saw the flywheel effect really kick into gear with this hitting like a multi-billion-dollar valuation. And then obviously once Andre left and there was kind of a lot of Fantom FUD, the house of cards unraveled for Solidly, and the fake emissions component was really broadcasted for the world to see, and a lot of people lost trust in this kind of model. However, it is an interesting bet, and it's very speculative, so obviously do your own research on this, but it is an interesting bet, in my opinion, to maybe just have a little look at Solidly, considering it is just like absolutely bottomed out, and the technology is actually quite good, the underlying tech. We know it's getting a new launch next week, and it has also partnered with Yearn, Abracadabra Frax for its Ethereum launch. So this is just something interesting to look at. Roosh is obviously a big whale, so take whatever he says with a grain of salt. He is a big holder of Solid. If you guys don't know who he is, he's a massive, massive Fantom whale. Had that I think $30 million position, which got liquidated at the start of the year. Like, he's a big, big whale and a big investor in these protocols. But he is bullish on Solidly, obviously, and it's one I haven't really heard much people talk about recently. So as a very speculative play, maybe have a little look at that. All right, moving on from the Fantom stuff that took longer than expected, I want to go into an altcoin that I added today to my spot bags. And the altcoin I added today to my spot bags isn't really narrative driven, so it kind of goes against the title of this video, but it is price driven. It's based on the charts, and I do think that it's hit what I would assume is a local bottom. And this is actually Vulcan Forged. Long term, in terms of the gaming space, I do have Vulcan Forged in my top 3. I like EOS, I like Gala, I like a few of these other protocols as well. But I think Vulcan Forged, building multiple games, building out their metaverse with the strategic partnerships they have, the reason the fact that they were able to withstand that major hack, bounce back quite quickly from it, and also continue to build in the bear market. There's just many, many positives for me to take away from this bear market in terms of Vulcan Forged. But the biggest positive is actually the charts, because we can see that we're hitting a formation that I like, and that is when you come off a selling phase and hitting an accumulation phase and making a double bottom. I always look for this when I'm looking at long-term accumulation, and PYR kind of exhibits this perfectly. So it hit its first bottom at 266. It hit its second bottom at 263. And we can see that it kind of formed a rounded bottom. And it looks to be pushing up to this next major trend at 380. So Obviously, in the short term, yes, this can pull back because it has run up, and it's logical that maybe it does come down and could even test again for a third time. I think so, but it is possible. But from a long-term perspective, I really, really like this chart. So we zoom out to the weekly chart. We can see that, I mean, this is actually quite an attractive chart to me, having two double local bottoms, basically a full breakdown, of trend for many, many months, and then consolidation. That is a decent chart for me from a long-term perspective. So I am making the decision right now to buy a little bit of spot PYR live on the show as a long-term hold. This isn't part of this December narrative that we're talking about in today's video. This is part of a longer-term portfolio, which I've been creating on Nested. Why is it only $50? Because I'm only using a $1,000 portfolio on Nested. Of course, in my own time, I'm going to go home or to my other computer and ape in a lot more than $50, trust me. But I'm getting a phone call. I'm going to ape in a lot more than $50, trust me. But for the Nested portfolio, because it's $1,000, it's weighted. So I only wanted to weight it at 5%. So if you guys want to copy this portfolio, I'm going to be DCAing live on the show basically for the next few weeks. And yeah, I'm going to be actively managing this portfolio. So we just added Vulcan Forged to the list alongside Chainlink, GNS, Lido Finance, BNB, and we're going to build up a nice DCA portfolio over time and get the stablecoin balance down as we continue to DCA. I'm a big proponent of DCAing around what I perceived to be a bottom formation, but we don't know when the exact bottom is. I don't claim to be a genius. I don't claim to be able to pick the bottom. I think that it is very likely the bottom will be from now 6 months either side of today's date. But that's actually a small enough time frame to be able to start DCAing as long as you have runway to DCA for 6 months. So that's the thesis I'm trading on. And I'm going to be doing it on Nested. So link in the description to copy one of my Nested portfolios. I'm currently running two, a portfolio on BNB and a portfolio on Polygon, which I just added PYR to, both of which are now significantly in the green. So we are positive on our performance versus Bitcoin, which is very good. So if you want to copy, link in the description, join along. We'll be DCAing over the next few months. Next narrative that's hot, it's no secret, Chainlink has been on a tear lately, and I want to explain a few of the reasons why Chainlink has been running and why I don't think the Oracle run is necessarily over. I do think there may be more room for the Oracle run to happen. Obviously, from a long-term perspective, Chainlink's one of the best tokens in crypto. I'm certainly not faulting Chainlink as a 2, 3, 4, 5-year hold. I do think if you're buying today, in 5 years' time, you're going to look back and be very, very happy you did. That's obviously the spot conversation, but that might require you to be underwater for a certain period of time. But when we look at December, and when we look at the next month exclusively, Chainlink is exhibiting a lot of strength off the back of staking, which is launching on December 6th. So staking was a big, big upgrade to Chainlink's tokenomics. Now there's finally a bit of demand side pressure on the Chainlink token beyond projects needing to hold Chainlink to power Oracle data. Now you have that retail side of things because people can power the Chainlink network by staking. Very important to have that retail component. And finally, Chainlink has that. And that is obviously why it's running in anticipation of staking. Is it possible staking launches and Chainlink pulls back? Absolutely. But similarly to the ETH merge, if we look long term at the impact on the tokenomics of the protocol, then it can only be viewed as a net positive in my opinion. So although this may pull back in the short term, I do think from a long-term perspective, Chainlink's a good one, and it's still pretty hot at the moment. So I don't see it as a terrible December trade at all. If the market continues to run, I still think Chainlink outperforms despite already running. And that's off the back of VRF, its verifiable random function request hitting almost their all-time highs, at least over the last 6 months. If you don't know what this is, it's a cryptographic function that takes a series of inputs, computes them, produces an output along with proof of authenticity that can be verified by anyone. Essentially, what this is saying is this is how you measure Chainlink's activity from an Oracle data perspective. Verifiable random functions is one of the ways we measure that. Delphi Digital did verify over the last few weeks. We have seen a spike. So essentially, TLDR, spike in the usage of the Chainlink network, which is a positive. And also we can see that exemplified via the total number of unique addresses also growing to 746K, which is plus 45K since the beginning of November. So that's very good for Chainlink as well. But obviously, I am forward looking. As I said at the start of this video, I'm not just about buying coins that have already pumped. Let's start looking for coins that haven't pumped. And potentially, the Chainlink narrative could spur on some of the other Oracle protocols in crypto. So you've got to think about it as a sector. When Axie Infinity first started running, that brought up the entire gaming industry as a whole. When the layer 1 started running, when Fantom started running, there was that rotation game that occurred into AVAX and some of these other L1s, Solana and many, many others during the bull run. A similar thing happens on a smaller scale with these mini narratives, just like we saw with GMX. Some of the liquidity flew into GNS and then MVX and then SAND and some of these other smaller ones. And I think it's a similar thing that can happen with the Oracle trend. So you've got other oracles like Band and TRB, which are potentially worth looking at. Now, just to reiterate, as I said in the start of the video, I'm not making calls here. I'm giving you ideas. I'm trying to give you that initial idea and that initial bit of research to get you guys thinking. And to get you guys thinking, I'm just saying the Oracle run, have a look at it. Do some research into oracles. Do some research into the Link alternatives, because if Link continues to run off the back of staking, the liquidity has to flow somewhere, and there are speculators that will take punts on other oracles. So these are just a few, but definitely look into it. I think this is an idea that could potentially run quite hard in December and beyond. These are just some of the bullish factors behind Chainlink. I don't think you guys need to hear them. I think most of you like Chainlink a lot. So I have one more narrative, which I think can be quite strong in December. In fact, I think this is the hottest one of them all, to be completely honest. And it comes off the back of that whole MetaMask IP saga that I talked about in yesterday's show. And that was the fact that MetaMask was using Infura to store IP data. And there's just been a lot of FUD around MetaMask, and I think rightfully so, because it's not great when a wallet is using your IP data. But beyond that, I think what has happened recently with FTX has resulted in a lot of distrust with centralized exchanges. And of course, I'm talking about wallets, because what's happened is a lot of people now are pivoting away from centralized entities to DeFi and to do a lot of their trading. And I've also done this myself. And when people pivot away from centralized finance to trading on DEXs and using DeFi protocols, then you need a wallet. And the wallet is honestly the most, and CZ said this, the most important piece of infrastructure in crypto. It's the most important tool of crypto. And I know it's boring to talk about wallets, because it's just like, we kind of think on face value, it's just a wallet that's not that interesting. But let's just actually think about it, right? When millions of people come into this industry in a few years' time, when millions of users are onboarded into crypto, as crypto is exploding and the DeFi ecosystem is fleshing out, what do they need? What is the first thing they need to get involved with DeFi? It's a wallet. Before you need a centralized exchange, you need a wallet, because you need to transfer your coin somewhere, right? So it's very, very, very important to recognize the importance of wallets in the overall crypto infrastructure. And although the vast majority of people still hold their coins on exchange for some reason, due to the convenience it gives, due to the perceived security it gives, although it's much, much less secure, but some people do prefer it, you have to realize that centralized exchanges have their limitations, and users must place trust in their exchanges to keep their funds safe if they're using a centralized exchange. Whereas if you use a decentralized exchange, you're putting the trust in yourself. So it's very important that we have good wallets that have great UI and that are intuitive, that people can use to onboard that next 1 million, 2, 3, 4 million, even 1 billion in the future users into crypto. The problem is wallets aren't very good in their current form. MetaMask is clunky. That UI will just not sustain over the next few years, in my opinion. Probably the best wallet we've seen so far is the Fantom wallet on Solana. That's actually quite good. But if we look at the wallet scene in general, wallets are quite bad. So there is room for innovation in this space, in my opinion. And I do think that MetaMask, although it does have an economic moat, I don't necessarily put it as the overall leader in 5 years' time. Okay, it's got first mover advantage for sure. And it's going to be hard to knock off that front position, but there will be better products that come out that I think are definitely worth a look at. So when we look at the wallet narrative, I don't think it's ever been as strong right now, for the two reasons that, one, people are distrusting centralized exchanges and moving to DEXs, and two, the IP drama that happened with MetaMask has a lot of people thinking about alternatives. So just a couple of the options in terms of other wallets that aren't MetaMask that are running hot right now. You've got XDEFI and you've got Block Wallet, which is represented by the Blank token. Now, I'm not saying ape into these once again, but I'm saying take a good look at some of the wallet alternatives. What I would do is I would actually use them. I'd go onto their websites, I'd check them out, I'd look through their white papers, obviously do some research on the tokenomics, and verify what MetaMask alternative you like the most. So obviously you've got Block Wallet, obviously you've got XDEFI, you've got Trust Wallet, you've got a few different options here. But I think that these are exhibiting some of the most relative strength versus the rest of the market. We could see that XDEFI is in quite a nice uptrend over the last 30 days. If we look at Block Wallet over the last 30 days, it's in a very strong uptrend. Take a good hard look at these protocols and see maybe if one of them is something that sparks your interest. If we look at Luna Crush, it's clear that it's not just sparking my interest, it's sparking the interest of a lot of the crypto community in general. If we look at the social mentions and the social engagements for Block Wallet, for example, it is significantly up over the last week, over the last few days. We saw this massive spike, which is crazy, of 2,800 social mentions a few days ago. We've seen spikes from XDEFI as well with its social engagement, which was basically zero last week. And now we're seeing it start to spike over the last couple of weeks. So clearly, this is something that's starting to run hot. And I would take a good hard look into the wallet trend. Now, there are a couple altcoins which I really wanted to discuss today on the back of the DeFi narrative, but I am aware that we're kind of running out of time and I don't want to overwhelm you guys with data. I want to give you a day to maybe look a bit deeper into the narratives that I talked about today, do some research, so then when we regroup tomorrow at 7 p.m. EST, we could take a look at a few of the other narratives in, let's call it a part 2, and then really start to position ourselves for December and hone in on a nice December portfolio for you guys. But I think for today, I've given you guys enough of a starting point to go into your research on the narratives I've discussed. So I think I'm going to leave it here in terms of making this a part 1. But I know a lot of you will have questions. So I do want to go into my Instagram right now and answer any questions you may have. Sorry, my phone's on the floor. Any questions you may have and just hang out with you guys because I am getting back into the consistent streaming again. And I do miss actually talking to you guys on Instagram and hanging out and doing my Q&A. I really do miss that. And I haven't done it in a month. So what I'm going to start doing after each live show on Crypto Banter is interact with you guys, hang out. You can ask questions and we can just have a nice conversation over on Instagram. So there's a link in the description. I think it's quite far down. I think it's like maybe like the 6th link in the description to my Instagram. Or, of course, it's Miles_Deutscher if you want to search it up. Come hang out on Instagram for the next, let's say, 20, 30 minutes and join along. I also just want to thank everyone for watching the show. I'm just looking through some of the comments. Christopher says none of us are overwhelmed. I think that's good, but also at the same time, like each of these 5 narratives that I talked about today, honestly, you could research all of them for like 10 hours. Like there's at least 50 hours of research here if you wanted to go that deep down the rabbit hole. So I just think putting a day in between the parts is smart so we can really, so you guys can actually dig deeper and then we can regroup. Trust is decent also. Yep. Trust Wallet is very good. Mentioned Sol. I think Sol needs its own video because what's happening over there is crazy. But the TLDR on Solana is, yes, it is facing headwinds, but at the same time, the user activity is still very strong. My only concern with Solana, and I think the main reason why it's dropped off in price is, do developers start to slightly detrust Solana just a little bit because of the recent events? And is it the best from an optics perspective for a new developer to develop on Sol over an ecosystem which isn't facing as many headwinds? That's my biggest concern over and above the Alameda holdings, because I do think Alameda dumping is priced in. But my biggest concern is from the developer point of view, in my opinion. I love Vulcan. Yep, Vulcan's a good project. Does Cryptos R Us copy this page? I actually, every time I mention a coin on my show, Cryptos R Us talks about it like a month later. For example, we called Chili's and Algorand on the show 2 months ago, way before the World Cup, literally in September. Like, we were very preemptive on that narrative. And Cryptos R Us only bought Algorand 3 days ago. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Like, we're front running these guys by about 2 months. I think maybe in 2 months, he'll start covering some of the things we talked about in today's video. That would be funny. All right, I'm gonna head off. Go to Instagram. See you guys tomorrow, same place, same time, 7 p.m. EST, and we'll discuss part 2 of December crypto narratives. Peace out. So he asked why I don't have a couch in my room anymore. The reason I don't have a couch is, one, I'm not in the same